Welcome one and all to the Stock Up Podcast, your one-stop shop for stocking up on the information you need to qualify for the Pro Tour. My name is Alex. I am joined today, as always, by my co-host, Jacob. How's it going, sir?
Good. How are you doing, Alex?
I'm good. I'm excited for this episode. It's kind of a fun one. We're doing our Lorwyn Top 10 next week. This week, we're going to talk about sort of what we've been playing over the weekend, some formats, as well as go over some Lorwyn previews. I'm really excited for Lorwyn. It's a cool set. How excited are you compared to the other sets of the year? It's pretty good, right? It's like an old-timey Magic set and a year of Universe and Beyond.
We're going to have a top 10 episode next week, but I've been pretty excited by kind of the kind of push they have on some of these things, like especially Kithkin. It's weird because it's like I don't think there's going to be a good Kithkin deck, but already between like previews and leaks, it's like there was a whole shell for like a Kithkin deck that it's kind of like I guess what I said about Lessons and Allies last time, and Lessons ended up being great, and Allies still does well every now and then, so maybe a Kithkin deck will be good. But it's the kind of thing where it's like I could build a Kithkin deck with the new cards that look stronger than like a lot of standard decks 5 years ago or whatever, but maybe a little bit older than that, because it's like, but
so your perception of it is a little off. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think the same thing. The Lessons thing, I think what we miss with that is that you could so easily slot it into the already good blue-red shell, essentially. And I guess that it was good with the Monument thing.
Yeah.
How much of the set is already spoiled, do you know? You definitely don't have everything at this point.
No, they shouldn't. But I believe this Friday everything should be out. So they decided to do it all in 1 week, basically.
So we probably got a lot of the strong cards, but probably not all of them.
Yeah, I guess the 1 week thing is because like it was the holidays, and Wizards they're a big take time off during the holidays type of company, is my understanding. So like I think if it was any other time of year, it probably would have started a week ago and been done over 2 weeks, but they were just kind of delayed it and just got it done in 1 week.
I really don't mind it. I mean, that's how I approach the spoiler anyways. Literally before our top 10s is when I look at the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little weird because we're really kicking into high gear now, testing for the PT on my team, but which maybe could have happened a little earlier. But there are still cool things we did. We even played. You could play Arena with the new Shocklands or whatever. So we've played games of just like Lessons with Steam Vents on Arena or things like that. So
okay, does that meaningfully help the deck?
It certainly doesn't hurt. I think a common kind of fail case for Lessons, I guess as an example, is like imagine your hand has like Island, Multiversal Passage as the lands, and then it has like Storm Chaser's Talent, Firebending Lesson, and Boomerang Basics, and then 2 other spells. So you have to, like, if your opponent plays an Elf on turn 1, you want to like Firebending Lesson it, but still go like have double blue on turn 2 to play like Talent plus Basics.
Totally.
So if you replace all the Multiversal Passages with Steam Vents, then I think it'll just run a lot smoother. And then on top of that, I think you might play 1 or 2 Multiversal Passage over some Basics, which will also just like make your mana a little better.
Yeah. So this weekend I played in a standard RCQ with Lessons, and I bought 2. I had 2 Multiversal Passages, and then I bought 2 more like weeks ago, and they just never came in.
Oh yeah.
So I just played an island and a mountain of different art.
Yeah.
And funny enough, during the tournament, they were only upside.
Oh,
that like funny. They never screwed me, and I just had more untapped non-pain lands.
That's nice, yeah.
Yeah. So what I did this weekend is I played in that RCQ, and I did qualify.
Nice. Was it a top 2 one, or did you win the whole thing, or?
It was a top 2, so it was like 5 rounds, cut to top 4, and then all I had to do was win 1. So that's cool. Not too hard. Yeah, it was cool. It's not a guarantee that I'm going to go, I would say, but I might. And it was fun. It was fun to play in a competitive tournament, in real life.
Yeah, and I heard you made I liked the changes you made. It's a direction a lot of Lessons players are going.
Okay, yeah. I didn't know that. I just made a couple changes to my main deck. So I noticed that I was sideboarding out a ton of Storm Chaser's talent. I basically side out in almost every matchup. It's good against like control decks. That's where you leave it in, and it's a decent game one card.
It's up for debate about if it's good in the mirror or not. Right? I guess I would never call it bad in the mirror. It's just
not bad. It just had so many other cards. You
present like a more optimal thing in the mirror, than having them. Is I guess what my argument.
Exactly. Yeah. It's funny at the tournament I mostly played. Is it mirrors? I did play against like the Riddler versions too. With the Frostcliff Siege or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the changes I made is I actually just cut 2 of the Stormchaser talent from my main deck, and I added a Quantum Riddler, just so I could make room out of my sideboard, and then I added 1 Steaming Sauna Roaring Furnace door, and that's because I was playing against a lot of mono green on the ladder leading up to the tournament, and I was a little bit worried about mono red, so it was just a card that I could bounce with my Boomerang Basics that was better against those sorts of matchups.
Yeah, that's an interesting card. I've played it with it a little bit too, mostly only on the sideboard of Lessons, but it's like really good with Boomerang Basics. It does a good job, and also like oftentimes when you start doing that, it also like lends itself to playing towards the 5 mana mode, which is really nice.
It does, yeah.
But then like what makes it tough to play in Lessons is that like a lot of the lessons are removal anyways. So if you're looking for removal, it's competing with just like a card that could put a lesson in your graveyard. But it is nice that like, especially in the aggro matchups, you might want to board out your Storm Chaser's talents, but keep in Boomerang Basics. So leaving yourself with more options to bounce than just nothing is kind of nice. I will say, I don't think it's like a disaster to have the Boomerang Basics in your deck post-board in a lot of these matchups with nothing to bounce, but it's certainly a bonus to have more things to bounce.
It is, for sure. And when I board out talent, I usually board out some basics, except for the mirror.
Yeah.
So I think basics is actually pretty useful in the mirror. But, yeah, so the other change, I wasn't afraid to have 1, basically, but exactly like you said, I wouldn't want too many because you still need the removal as lessons. The other change I made a long time ago is I put the 4th Abandoned Attachments into the main deck. I've been really happy with that card.
That makes sense.
Especially since, another one of my spells is a removal spell.
Yeah.
And it's just, I find so many games that it's just the card I want, especially when you draw a Monument and you don't draw talent, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it powers up your good draws, too.
Yeah, I've been watching Andre Strosky, who's the PT Oko champion and long-time winner of Magic things. He's qualified for this next Pro Tour.
Okay, he had taken some time off, I thought.
He always says he's retired. Now that I think about it, he's qualified for Richmond, and the Pro Tour he won was in Richmond, so maybe he's really feeling it. But anyways, he's not on a team, and he's just streaming with like his buddy.
That's
a bunch of testing.
I need to watch.
And he's playing a Spotlight Series. I don't know if it's also this weekend. I know there's one in Atlanta this weekend, and then maybe the European one's also the same weekends. Or I would think they're separate weekends. He's been playing Lessons with 0 Storm Chasers talents. And like 2 main deck Spell Pierce and only 2 Boomerang Basics. But I think he has like all 4 attachments and maybe Quench or 2 or stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely like the all 4 attachments. I could see going to 0 Storm Chaser talent. Usually what I do when I'm toying around with stuff like that, though, is I start by just cutting away and seeing what happens. I try not to go too extreme.
No, I like that you played 2, because also I don't think that card... it's like kind of cool when you flood with otters pretty fast to like draw them in multiples. But like it's also like pretty fine to just draw 1 and start comboing with Boomerang Basics is like a loop engine late in the game, like it's, or just like use it once and rebuy Accumulated Wisdom or a removal spell and be happy.
When you activate it and you win those games, it's usually you're activating it like once maybe, so usually having 1 is fine. It is important to have it like against there are still people playing Control. There's actually 2 Jeskai Control decks at this tournament, and I played against one of them. And I mean, Sword Talent is just one of the best cards in that matchup. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah,
that's nice. So yeah, the only other thing that I found interesting about that tournament was I was sideboarding pretty differently in the mirror than my opponents, and I wasn't super confident in what I was doing. even though I was the one that ended up winning most of the matchups. Like I said, I was boarding out all of my talents and all of my 2-mana removal, unless I knew they were leaving in talent of their own, in which case I would leave in some Iros demonstrations.
Yeah, that's pretty similar to what I've done.
And I've just been leaving in all my firebending lessons and all my grands.
Okay. I've been cutting like 2 grands pretty often. Two's
Okay.
like the number where I'm like, I still have them on like turn 4 or later, where I can like play this, play a spell immediately discounted. Even if they firebending lesson in response, I'm going to play another spell discounted and still have gotten like 2 mana out of it, you know, for 1 mana.
Yeah, one of the things about it is, I mean, it's less so the sideboard of games, but the matchup's pretty snowbally, and I didn't want to take out all my one drops. Basically, I still want to play something on turn 1. Got all my
I
untap
guess in
mana
my mind, it's like I just really don't want to like play a 1-drop and have my opponent put a lesson in their graveyard and answer it. And that's kind of true of Storm Chaser's talent too, and like even Boomerang Basics kind of works.
Just fuels their knowledge faster, or their wisdom.
Yeah, it's kind of just like it's a little bit worse for you than a normal like exchange on them killing a 1-drop, which is like why the lessons deck is good. You know, like when they kill a 1-drop of firebending lesson, that's like drawing a third of a card or something. You know, like it kind of equates to that later on.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. The reason I was leaving him is because a lot of the time I would have boarded out a decent amount of removal, which I feel like is fine, and then sometimes I would lose to my opponent's grand really early. You know.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah, I mean, when I'm on the draw, I've pretty often been on like 4 firebending less than 2 Iros.
Yeah, that's pretty common for me too.
I also just kind of expect like on the play, my opponent might be less likely to board out their talents, their Storm Chaser's talents, so they might just like go talent basics talent me, and I might have the Iros, which is nice.
Yeah. The other thing was, and I think I think next time I play the mirror, I'll try boarding out some grands and I'll bring these in. But at some point I'd stopped bringing in my lanterns, and I might have had too many sideboard cards. What did you say about that?
I don't think it's that weird to not board in lantern in the mirror.
Yeah, it's just like it sounds better than it actually plays out. Like it does things, but it's kind of fiddly. And
it's kind of funny. One of the cards it's
card disadvantage.
Yeah, one of the cards it's better against is Storm Chaser's talent.
Better against it? Oh.
Yeah, just like because then it sits there and play, and they just can't possibly activate.
They can't ever do it. Yeah, like, whereas they could still just cast Wisdom and just get
and then make you crack it and kind of be happy.
Yeah, I just found that you could like make him crack it pretty early, especially if you leave him 4 grand, and then you have the Wisdoms too, and then you just reload with a abandoned attachments or whatever. But so that's what I was doing, and I had 2 Rowls. I don't know that I need 2 Rowls on my sideboard, but that's what I had.
Yeah, I'm like between 1 and 2 Rowls being the number I like in lessons. The first one definitely feels really good. I'm kind of that way with Riddler too.
Okay, I've liked Riddler. I don't know that I want more than 2, but I do play games where like it just never comes into like it feels like Riddler is good in the games that are going badly or you're interacting a lot, which I don't mind. But that's why I've liked that. So yeah, that was cool. Hopefully Standard gets shaken up a bit, although I suspect it will. I don't think this Lessons deck is... It's funny, it feels like, you know, the sentiment about it is that it's actually not that good, and I still kind of think it is. But I don't think it's insane.
Yeah, so I guess to like touch on that, Simic Ouroboros has really become popular again on Magic Online.
It has.
Yeah, my current belief is that deck is not favored into Lessons, but that deck has undergone some like notable improvements to a degree that aren't like matchup specific improvements. They're like fundamental improvements that I think just makes the deck better versus like every matchup. So that makes sense to me why it's winning a lot.
What are some of the changes that you've noticed?
So they have like 4 Riddler, Ouroboros, of course. 4 Spider Manifestation from Spider-Man, the one we saw at Worlds, the 2/2 hybrid reach creature that taps for red or green, and when you cast it,
I have been playing against that.
Tap it. And then also 4 Nature's Rhythm, and then maybe some flex spots, some Winter Night Stories. They usually have like a mix of Spider Sense and Into the Flood Maw as kind of their interaction. Um, but anyways, just kind of like, oh, they also have one Crater Hoof, which looks kind of overkill. But I had mentioned this before. Your deck's like pretty good at casting it, or maybe even Nature's Rhythming for it.
Mm-hmm.
And as I watch the games, like the ability to do that really matters. Like especially in these green mirrors, where like what happens is like one player might play Ouroboros first, and then that kind of sets them up to win. But like the person on the draw could just like maybe untap and Crater Hoof,
And that kind of breaks that symmetry.
Yeah. But the like warping of the Riddler, untapping the manifestation, maybe harmonizing Nature's Rhythm off the Warp Riddler for like an extra 4, stuff like that. It's really powerful. And then like Nature's Rhythm is also really good with the Spider manifestation. It's kind of like a combo deck. It's almost like a natural order elves deck, where like it's just all mana and payoffs. And like the thing where you just like maybe your 2-drop is just Spider manifestation, but then next turn you like Nature's Rhythm for 2, the manifestation untaps, you get a Badgermal Cub, you could tap it for 2 more mana right away. Now you're set up for next turn to just have a ton of mana. Just little things like that.
I have been playing against it a ton on the ladder, and it's a good deck. Lessons is certainly not bad into it, but it didn't feel too great.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I considered playing Blue-White Control at the RCQ, because I got Blue-White Control to a point where it was really good against green. I actually don't really like Blue-White Control into Blue-Red very much. Again, it's okay, but I'd rather not be on that side of it.
No, I agree. And Lessons could like maybe play a Pyroclasm or 2 in the sideboard. Like there are things they could do to like recognize that this deck's powerful and needs a little bit more respect than just like the normal anti-creature package of Lessons.
Yeah. I think I had a Pyroclasm, and like in Blue-White Control, I was cutting Beza basically for more sweepers, because I found Beza wasn't really good against that deck. It's not really good against Lessons, so that sort of thing. Yeah,
their deck's fast. They can win on turn 3 with crazy draws.
There are a couple new cards they might get too, right? That look pretty good, green and blue. I think so, anyways. Before we get into talking about some of the spoilers, we do have this Pioneer qualifier weekend coming up. So I've been playing a bit of Pioneer, and I know you have as well. What have you been playing?
Yeah, I've been focusing on blue-red decks, though. I will say I decided, I was kind of telling myself I'd wait till Friday and play the best of 3 plan to play. And then I had a spur of the moment thought that I thought the Scapeshift deck in Pioneer, like in game 1, I'd never experienced. I played a little bit and just didn't really have any issues in game 1, because it's such a weird combo deck that like is hard to beat with your main deck, and it's really fast. It can win on turn 3, often wins on turn 4. But like Graveyard Hate, counter spells, just lots of different things can get in your way to win, so it's like hard to navigate the post-board games. But anyways, I played best of 1. I went 2-2 the first time, and one of my losses I like definitely kind of screwed around and tried to win when I shouldn't have. And then I went 6-1 the second time, where my loss I also screwed around and tried to win when I shouldn't have.
Okay.
So pretty good demonstration of winning game 1s pretty easily.
Yeah, so good best of 1 deck. Yeah, I also decided to just go ahead and wait for the best of 3 this weekend. So I'm going to be playing a lot on Friday. Blue-red deck. How have you liked blue-red?
Yeah, I've been trying lots of different blue-red shells. I like Boomerang Basics Talent. I like Corey Steelcutter. Those are in all my decks, except for, I guess, Phoenix. But I just ran into some kind of issues with Phoenix. One kind of weirder issue is I just don't like how many cantrips it has, which I think you just kind of have to do in Phoenix. They play like the full 12 1-mana ones, and then Free the Fae on top of that, and then those are like fueling treasure crews. And I just run into like these keeps where you just keep all cantrips and your opponent's trying to kill you really fast, and you don't find the removal, or it's too slow to find the removal, and it's kind of a disaster. So more pressure. This is kind of close to the Prowess list. I've been trying some things. I have not actually played with the profs yet. That was a most recent ad, because I cut basically. I had another interactive spell, and I cut it for that because I just wanted I did want like one more card that could maybe convert into more cards because that's kind of like the name of the game in Prowess. And I thought, I could target this with Boomerang Basic still. I could, just grow my guys. I have the ops and considers in this build. So I'll touch on that because my list is a little bit different. The normal Prowess lists, they play like Experimental Synthesizer and Heroes Hangout. Or Firebrain Scheme is what it's called on Arena. Which are like these red exiling cantrips. And the joke with Experimental Synthesizer is that you can bounce it with Boomerang Basics. And I talked about this last week, but I'm just not impressed. The Synthesizer only gives you one turn. It just exiles your top card. You have to play it right that turn. And I've just played it too many times, even, when I would happily take a land drop or happily take, most of my deck of spells. And then you just hit some removal spell that doesn't work that turn, and somehow you ended up playing a cantrip that didn't actually draw you a card.
Yeah, so it's funny. I've been playing against this deck a lot, even though I haven't played it. And I also just haven't really found that part of the deck to be very impressive, so I'm not surprised you wanted to try something else. When I play against Phoenix, I do feel like that deck's still really strong.
That deck's really good against slower decks, I think.
Okay, that's fair, and I've been playing Blue-White Control.
I think what I talked about with the cantrips thing, as you play against faster decks, these just actually get in your way.
That makes sense. So decks like this have been a problem for you when you play Phoenix?
Yeah, you're kind of just hoping to somehow out Steel Cutter them for the most part, which is kind of tough,
Right.
The mirrors, I'll be honest, I don't find the mirrors very pleasant to play, but I'm learning some tricks as I build kind of my version. I've tried lots of different things. I've played 2-drops over these Soulscar mages. I'll also say the stock Prowess list plays 4 more threats than I do. I think a lot of people have caught on to that. It's very weird. 20 threats in Prowess is just really atypical compared to any Prowess list you've seen in the last year or so in Modern or Standard.
Yeah, you do run the risk of just drawing all creatures.
Yeah, and they work horribly in multiples. Right. I like at least by playing all the best 1-drops, I have 12 of them, that my Academic Disputes are really likely to kind of work. That's kind of, what makes this deck really strong and what is making other creature decks maybe underperform right now is when you do pull off the Academic Dispute, make your guy block my guy. And I draw, usually Boomerang Basics the first time, but you could draw a removal spell or things like that. In a sense, Dispute is a cantrip in this deck, but it's guaranteed to hit a spell, and hopefully you set it up in a way that you also 2-for-1 your opponent. But a lot of the times your opponent knows you're trying to 2-for-1 them with it, so or you're playing a matchup where it can't really do that. But still, a cantrip, it's an instant. It draws another spell. It's a pretty flexible pool of spells to get. You can see right now I have 6. I'd say always Boomerang Basics, Firebending Lesson, Octopus Form, and Iris Demonstration are there. I have not found the Quench to be very good. You're just never going to hold up 3 mana to do it plus Quench in the same turn, so you're just going to end up face-upping the Quench if you do it. Yeah. And then that's really bad because you're a Prowess deck that wants to tap out every turn, and Quench is just really easy to play around. And then, so I found I kind of, in some spots, wanted an exile spell, which is why the Combustion Technique is there. People play Enduring Innocence in this format sometimes, and occasionally you run into some other things that, exiling would be really good.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, as I play more Disputes throughout the game, it can get a little stronger, and you'll notice I have Accumulate Wisdom. I had, Abandoned Attachments for a long time, and I've noticed other people occasionally had Accumulate Wisdom and not attachments. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes sense because, if you just need more card draw off your cantrip, you kind of just need to have a land in hand for attachments to even be that good, and it has to hit 2 spells. And, the Wisdom is just, Anticipate, which is fine, but also I've been between 1 and 2 Divide by 0 in my sideboard. I go back and forth, and that kind of makes this Wisdom technique package in my sideboard a little bit stronger, because in post-board games, I might actually have these cards be live, and also you can bounce Storm Chaser's Talent with Divide by 0, pick up Divide by 0, or things like that. So you can even do little loops and learn a lot of these cards.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, on rate, it's not obvious to me which is better between the discard draw 2 or the look at the top 3 pick 1. So the fact that you can turn them on later makes total sense. There's one other lesson that someone has played against me once, and it was decent because I'm playing with the Star Cage, and that was the red lesson that destroys artifacts.
Yeah.
Have you thought about playing that?
I guess that would be decent against the Star Cage. I don't think it's good enough to like kill their cutter. That's pretty slow, but maybe the option would be worth it. Sideboarding in the mirror, I'm not even like that into. I kept experimenting with things, and really like the counter spells are just really high variance. Pyroclasm's a little high variance, but I'll occasionally do the Pyroclasm thing, especially if I see I'm against a list with Emberheart Challenger specifically. Because, like, especially if I'm on the draw, they're just like, it's not uncommon for them to go 1-drop in the Challenger, and if you just like have the Pyroclasm to get a 2-for-1 and clean up the board, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, I guess it's not obvious to me what you would even want in the mirror. More core steel cutters, right? So
yeah, and yeah, it's just like maybe I should try the Price of Freedom. Maybe I'd find I'd occasionally kill a cutter in the mirror. Giving them a land
seems like a decent option, especially if you aren't super happy with your sideboard cards, anyways. But
yeah, and then like I mostly just have this mix of counter spells, Divide by Zero, and Quantum Riddler to like cover boarding out my removal. Because my whole deck works except for the Fiery Impulses and the Torch to Tower. Those are the only cards that like could be dead cards in a given matchup. So I just want to make sure I have some things. I haven't played the Riddler, but I saw that recently, and I added it to my sideboard at the same time I added this Profs with kind of like, occasionally I kind of flood and just like want something to maybe give me a little bit more gas. It could just be a stock up again. I've had that a lot. I would not play Treasure Cruise, even with Consider an Opt, which is like abnormal. I've played the Treasure Cruise. This is a small sample, but like I boarded it in against red-black mid-range, and it was in my opening hand, and just like I couldn't cast it on the first 5 turns of the game, and it's just a disaster. Like if I'm going to play it too, I would just play stock up if you wanted something like that, or I'm going to ideally the Quantum Riddler is I guess what I'm looking at.
Yeah, and you can't really handle like defending yourself into the late game either. So a card like Treasure Cruise, I mean, like it doesn't apply pressure right away, and so if you can't cast it early, I think it makes sense not why it wouldn't be in a deck like this.
Yeah,
I like that you have more blue mana.
Yeah, so that's another thing about cutting red cantrips for blue ones is I kind of adjusted my mana to have more blue sources. And I think that makes my mana better. I've played around with different kind of numbers. I mean, the River Pyre Verge is just like, it's mountain first. So this is really still red heavy, even though it kind of looks like I have 1 extra Otawara and a bunch of duels. I think, the pathway is interesting. Multiversal Passage is like a worse pathway that turns on the Verge, but I'm just going to try some basics for now. I've been toying around with different numbers on the mana.
Gotcha.
I do admit though, like these 16 dual lands I have, it is the best to just have your lands tap for both colors so that you just don't have to like weirdly commit to one color. And then, if you play a bunch of the pathways, you just end up in spots where like you have to name red on this turn and then you can't tap it for mana the next turn.
Yeah, especially for a deck like this where literally you have 2 cards that have colorless in their mana cost. So everything has to be lined up exactly right, and so if your lands only add one of the colors, it can be kind of rough. You do still have a lot of cantrips. Like you have 4 Opt, 4 Consider, 4 Dispute. Has that been too many? I know the other red deck has less, right?
They usually have 4 Dispute, 4 Synthesizer, 4 Heroes Hangout. Maybe they have 1 less of those.
So you need a lot of cantrips to make all the Prow stuff work. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, no, they just normally have like 4 more creatures. Maybe they, trim one of those. They don't have this Profs. Oh, they usually play 20 lands, and then they play 8 2-drops. And then I sent you this because this kind of inspired me. I don't know if it was a true statement or not. I mean, I could believe it. Some Japanese player got Fire Shoes to retweet them, and then the tweet. Just the deck list is fine. But in the tweet, they said they were just on a 25 match win streak in Mythic.
Wow.
But
I can believe it.
what I admired is I was like, at first I saw like they just played, the same threats I have now, and I was like, I'm just gonna start doing that. That makes a lot of sense to me. Like the 2-drop threats, just they're vulnerable to shock, and Soulscar Mage is a lot less vulnerable to shock because it trades 1-for-1, on mana, and that's fine. And sometimes it's harder to shock because you have a mana up. Especially true in my list, I've noticed. This is kind of a tangent, but another kind of reason I like the blue cantrips. I was playing mirrors, and a lot of their early game removal is just shock basically.
Yeah.
And I realized I could develop these like 1/2s for 1, and just leave up an opt or consider if my opponent had mana up. And I'm not even missing out on that much, kind of holding them if they're burning their mana at the same time,
Right.
And then when I need damage out of them, I'm still going to get the damage out of them.
Yeah, totally.
Like on a
Because
later
then you
turn.
untap and go to your turn, and you can just cast a spell and still have it open, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I really like that. But yeah, I like this list, and I was like, okay, what did they cut the Emberheart Challengers for? And I saw like, a little bit more removal, but I was kind of counting it out, and I'm like, what else did they add? Because it doesn't seem like that many more cards than I'm used to seeing, and it's 2 lands, which I thought was awesome.
22.
They have 22, which I could believe maybe I'm supposed to be playing.
Well, I will say, I would think the red current trips actually would need more land.
Yeah.
Because they're less about choice, and sometimes you really need to hit a land, and like if you just exile a top card of your library, having a little more land is better. Because you could almost always play a land off of those things.
Yeah, it's very tough. You have games where you get super flooded. You have games where you feel like you could never possibly get flooded. You have games where you lose because you miss your 3rd land drop, things like that. You can't trigger cutter. This sideboard, by the way, it's in Japanese, but I've looked it up. You might see 4 of the same card, and then you see 2 blue cards at the bottom. The 2 blue cards, if you're, this is an easier guess. That's this town ain't big enough. 4 and a blue.
Okay.
But then, I was curious, are these just the Braids and Pyroclasms? And it's 2 Pyroclasm above the this towns. But then the 4 of is Abbot of Carroll Keep, which is funny with Boomerang Basics in this town. Yeah, but that's also just a single turn. It's the same trigger as Synthesizer, and it's a Prowess creature, and it makes sense they have a bunch of removal in their main deck they could board out.
Do you think they board that for the mirrors?
No, I think they board out all their removal for a bunch of Abbots and this towns.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Against control or whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I guess that makes sense. Maybe not.
They have a detect intrusion hidden among their lessons too. I went deep and checked what every one of these cards was.
Nice.
They actually don't have. Yeah, that's not accumulate wisdom. That's detect. That's spider sense. But
okay, nice. And they have the abandoned attachments, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those of you just listening, we're looking at a deck list in Japanese, but
yeah. And yeah, more blue. These lists also, even this one here, only has 13 turn 1 blue for Storm Chasers, which is pretty low. I got myself to 15.
It's not too bad for just the Storm Chasers, but if you ever want to do Storm Chasers plus Boomerang, it makes it pretty tough.
Yeah. I do think that happens a lot less in this. It's like not a requirement to happen so much with so many 1-mana spells, at least. We're used to in Standard, just like being your opening hand and the only thing you'd ever want to do. And in this deck, you're just like, okay, I'll play Swift Spear. I'll play, a Swift Spear and Boomerang Basics, my talent. Sure. Not that big of a deal.
Okay, so how much do you like this deck? Is this what you're going to play this weekend, pretty much? Unless something changes?
Yeah, like I said, my favorite things to do in the format are certainly play Dispute, Storm Chasers, Boomerang Basics, and Quarry Steelcutter. So then from there, I want more creatures for my Disputes to work, and it doesn't. Swift Spear is certainly one of the best creatures ever for Dispute, because the fact that you could maybe play a cantrip on 1 and then still have Swift Spear plus Dispute on turn 2 is pretty amazing. And then Soulscar Mage costing 1 is just gonna work out, I think, better than a 2-drop or whatever. See, I'll probably just be tweaking this, and that's my plan. I just tried Phoenix again, and I was just so unimpressed.
Okay. How set are you on this list? The list you're with all 1-drops and only Steelcutter and then 1 prof.
It's probably pretty close to what I
would play at this
have.
point.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited for the profs. I do have, um, 11 blue spells that say draw a card, and Dispute sometimes gets Boomerang Basics, which also says draw a card. Perhaps I mean, with one profs, I probably don't need to be thinking about playing abandoned attachments or whatever after my previous argument, but
maybe if you had more,
and one drop into profs is also not a horrible start to the game.
No, Prowess is a strong card. I like that you're going to try it. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try a couple games with this list, and then if I do way better with it than I've been doing with the deck I've been playing, which is Bullet Control, then I'll play this.
Yeah. Oh, another card in my sideboard that I keep playing like 1 or 2 copies of, but I almost never see in Prowess is Tormod's Crypt. So kind of narrow, like Phoenix and Scapeshift come to mind for where I'd want this card, but
yeah.
It's almost a proactive card. Like, it's just so strong to have a free spell. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, if you have the Steel Cutter and you play a turn 2 Steel Cutter plus Tormod's Crypt, that's like a haste monk that you just never were going to have that game.
Right. So yeah, that's pretty nice.
It's pretty good.
I know the Prowess decks in Modern play a lot of 0-mana cards that sometimes aren't even that great for that sort of reason.
Yeah, I mean, the Prowess decks in Modern will play Cutter and Mutagenic Growth their opponent's Ragavan and then not attack.
Yeah, so, there you go.
0-mana monks are strong, and when you get to cast the Tormod's Crypt, it's pretty amazing. I might add another. It's a little. I've played against some cat oven decks, and I got to admit, it's really hard to snag a cat with Tormod's Crypt. So,
oh, wow, I haven't played against cat oven in a long time. I kind of forgot that was a thing.
They're getting kind of popular. It's I've got like a few kind of edges. What?
Do they have something new that's like brought them back?
No, I just think they might have a good Prowess matchup.
Okay.
The cat oven plus they've just got Fatal Push and removal and
right. I can see it.
Yeah, I've got the Monstrous Rage is kind of a hedge towards that. Also, I've noticed some of the Prowess players have been using Screaming Nemesis for the mirror, so like this one Rage, one Into the Flood Maw is kind of appealing for that, but it's a little weird for the mirror because like couldn't I just like get my creatures all to 4 toughness and Fiery Impulse like the Screaming Nemesis and just take 3 damage? Like I don't think it's 3 mana is a lot in mirror, It's
getting Boomerang Basics probably is pretty tough too.
That too. Yeah, that's I added the profs as like one more thing to basics, but I'm not that sad when I only have 4 Storm Chasers talents to basics. You're just a really aggressive deck. You have these cantrips, so you find the talent a lot to begin with, and then like you just end up bouncing your opponent's thing, and it's good because you're so aggressive.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the deck I've been playing, Pioneer, has been Blue-White Control. I started with Yorion because I had the idea to play Storm Chaser's Talent and Boomerang Basics in it, and that was cute, but I think just not very cohesive with the deck, and the format's in a place where you kind of can tune a control deck against it, at least the way the ladder, at least on Arena, because it's a pretty narrow field, relatively speaking. So I've just sort of got this like lockdown version of the deck where I've got a main deck High Noon and Authority of the console is more in the sideboard. I've got 4 Seam Rip and 3 Pinnacle Starcage. Seam Rip is a card that the other Blue-White Control players, from what I can tell, aren't playing, which doesn't make a ton of sense. I mean, I could see being worried that, lockdown, Starcage, etc., plus Seam Rip would be too much hate on the little things. You might have trouble in other matchups, but people just play enough cheap permanents at this point that I'm not afraid to have the 4 Seam Rip.
Yeah, I'm thinking about there's a decent amount of like tokens and stuff too, so it's kind of nice to like Seam Rip a token in your Yorion deck.
It comes up all the time. Yeah, so that's cool too. I did try Kahira a bit. I mostly just tried something very similar to the list that everybody else is playing, a Kahira list, and I thought it'd feel a lot more consistent, and it really didn't. So, and Yorion's a much better card than Kahira.
Definitely.
So I've been pretty happy with this.
Oh, nice, you have a Meticulous Archive. That's a kind of silly thing, but I told some blue-white players this a while ago, and not all of them listened to me, but when you play a deck like this and you play against random green decks, I think you end up realizing you get Beseju'd almost every game. and not that green decks are like that common,
Funny.
but I realized if you added the archive and you happen to play against the green Pioneer deck, that it's like really common to just get it off Beseiju.
Okay, that's a good
It's
reason
not-
to have it,
Yeah, it's also not even
especially
you know,
in a
a horrible
Yorion
thing.
deck.
Yeah, but yeah, especially in a Yorion deck. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So I'm playing
I
a
always-
mix of Meticulous Archive, Irrigated Farmland, and Restless Anchorage as my tap lands. Obviously,
Yeah.
I don't want too many, so this is the total. And I actually don't know between Farmland and Archive which is better, so I just went with a mix. I wanted some, because I've still got the 4 Flood Farm Verge in the deck. And I think Irrigated Farmland, I think I cycle it a decent amount, so I'm happy enough with
sense.
that.
No, I don't think you need more than one archive. I just kind of really like the first archive. I've told people
That's
to
a good
cut around
point.
Restless Anchorage or whatever if those were the only blue-white tap lands.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to keep one now. Sometimes when I see Yorion mana bases, by the way, while I'm thinking about it, they have more colorless lands than just 4. And I think that's wrong because the problem isn't really like having too many colorless lands in your hand or in your deck once the game goes on. The problem is like you have opening hands with too many.
Yeah.
And so I just don't think you can play
Yeah,
too
it's
many.
such a
You
weird
have to mulligan.
thing building mana bases, and your point's entirely right. And like I'm running into this in 60 card formats too, where it's like the number of lands you play that like can't cast your spells kind of matters regardless how many lands you actually play in total.
Yeah.
I know Frank Carson has done like math about this before too, or whatever, where it's just like if you just like play Fleece Mainline, it was back when Fleece Mainline was a card, so that's my example, but it was just like he said something like, I wouldn't play more than 3 lands in my deck that like can't cast Fleece Mainline, and here's why. Like even if you have 22 Fleece Mainline sources, like you're just gonna realize how terrible like the other lands are in your opening hand.
Yeah, and this deck, like I have a ton of dual lands because there's a ton of good blue-white dual lands in Pioneer. So my source account feels really high, and you could think you could probably get away from more colorless lands
But you
because
have
the regular deck plays
8
for it.
gold 2-drops, it's kind of the same story.
Totally, yeah. Just No More Lies, Veto, Dovin's Veto, all this sort of thing. You just can't have an opening hand with too many. And this deck has a lot of like card filtering in particular between Stock Up and Consult the Star Charts and Omen of the Sea. So if you really need to Field the Ruin, you can usually find it, that sort of thing. Slower matchups. So yeah, nothing too crazy here. Oh, I have Appa. I forgot. Appa's been great in specifically Yorion. It works really well with Omen of the Sea. I've been super impressed.
That makes
And
sense.
it works well with Yorion as well.
Right.
Seam
you mentioned
Rips,
that last
Pinnacles,
week.
Stargates.
You can kind of get a loop going.
You can, yeah. You can get it going with Aang, Yorion, Appa.
Yep.
Be pretty sweet. So yeah, nothing too crazy here. Oh, you do get, when you play Yorion, you get better sideboard options too, because Kahira also makes you not want to play like cat elementals or whatever in your sideboard, which some people just will ignore and still do it. But
Well, you have Voice of Victory, and that's it, right?
Voice of Victory and Enduring Curiosity, I think.
No,
Although
I
maybe,
think you can
that's
play
a
Enduring
cat.
Curiosity with Kahira, yeah. But the Curiosity is much better with Voice of Victory and Aang in your deck. And also, the Appa thing's really cool to me.
Yeah, I've been impressed with it.
Again, I guess Aang does the same thing, where like you just can get your Yorion down and flicker one of these and immediately airbend your Yorion, which is
and I mostly use Aang as like a flex card or as a way to. It's actually pretty nice against just killing tokens.
Yep,
and it's pretty nice against Prowess. And then when you have it, it's just sitting in play, and then you have Yorion. It makes sure Yorion.
Appa's kind of cool with Wandering Emperor too.
Which sure is, because you can blink
Flash
it and then flash it back in and use its abilities.
One of my favorite random cube things is when you flicker wisp your Wandering Emperor and then activate it in your end step.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how this compares to the other decks because this is all I've really played, but I've liked it well enough, certainly enough to give it a try this weekend.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone. I've had some conversations with people that are kind of interested in this too. It's definitely like pretty scary and closed deck list. If you're gonna be narrow on a metagame, and I could definitely believe, that you're accurate about like what you think you're beating with this deck or whatever. But
And then you play against something wider in an actual tournament. Yeah.
yeah,
We will see. Okay. So let's see. What's our time at? 45 minutes. Not bad. So let's talk about some Lorwyn cards, huh?
yeah. So yeah, we're just gonna talk about some of them because we're looking at them, and we're gonna do a top 10 for next week. But there's kind of some cards that are basically parts of cycles or exciting things that Alex pulled up for us to talk about.
First of all, I'll go ahead and just mention right off the top, we're getting the 5 Shocklands.
Yeah.
And this one in particular, right? This one and like Blood Crypt, Temple Garden, Blood Crypt are pretty huge because I think those are the 2 combos in particular that were hurting the most.
Yeah, so the allied color combos in Standard have been missing out on fast lands. And it's pretty interesting, I mentioned Simic has been doing really well. Simic has perfect mana before the set even, it's got all the lands.
Right.
Yeah, now this will kind of help maybe a green-white Cub deck or, the Bant's Airbending deck gets this and Hollowed Fountain. So that might be a huge deal. It really helps, I think, these decks just have more options, playing Llanowar Elves into maybe Enduring Innocence or things like that. Not that I think that's necessarily a good direction to go in Standards, but just things like that are like really impossible without these types of lands. Also, kind of, it was kind of a mystery when Edge of Eternities came out why those 5 Shocklands were the 5 they were.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of makes more sense now. So in Lorwyn, for those of you who don't know, I loved Lorwyn when I was a kid. But there's kind of like 8 major creature types, and which is a weird number, for a Magic set, because we're used to things being in 5s or 10s. But they are like Kithkin, Merfolk, Fairies, Goblins, Giants, Treefolks, Elementals, and Elves. And
Nice.
In this set, it kind of makes sense, though one of them is kind of weird to be left out. They've kind of picked only 5 of them to be the major represented creature types, and the other 3 are kind of on the outside skirmish. And 2 of those 3 make a lot of sense to me because they're Giants and Treefolk, which are just clunky, expensive kind of monsters that are hard to like build a whole thing around. The third one's Fairies, so that's definitely like a little weird. And these things are still getting some support in the set, but they're just not like major archetypes.
Right.
And the 5, major ones are being represented in color combinations that these Shocklands are representing.
Okay, I didn't realize that. That's cool.
Yeah. So like the Kithkin are green-white, the Merfolk are white-blue, the Elementals are technically 5 color, but they're mostly blue-red. The Goblins are red-black, and the Elves are black-green. So
yeah, cool. Man, I'm so excited for this set. I think when I first started playing Magic, this is the set that was out. This is like, when I first started playing kitchen table sort of thing. Not when I would go to tournaments, but
me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I played pre-release as always, but yeah.
Okay, cool. Temple Garden, okay. And you never know, like, bad mana is hard to quantify because when you just play the decks, you just find out that you lose a lot more often, and sometimes you think it's the cards, but it could just be the mana,
Yeah, or like, even this, there's spots where like you don't realize what these can do, but like I'll take an example. Like there's like the 4-color Allies deck in Standard that uses a bunch of the Cavern of Souls type lands, but it's base green-white, and I think like this existing will not only make the mana better, but like open up the options to be like, I'm going to play Seam Rips in my deck and like Hollowed Fountain and Temple Gardens and enough white sources, stuff like that.
And that could completely change the deck. Yeah, totally. Okay, so we got our first card here to look at. Again, we just picked some of the cards that were cool. We're going to do our top 10 next week. So I didn't necessarily go after like all the best cards. This is Ashling Rekindled, 1 in a red, 1/3 elemental sorcerer. Whenever this creature enters or transforms into Ashling Rekindled, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. And the reason it has that kind of odd wording is because this is a transform card. And it says, at the beginning of your first main phase, you may pay blue. If you do, transform Ashling. And then this is there's a lot of these transform cards in the set, and basically they can transform back and forth. So that's why they refer to themselves in their text boxes.
Yeah, there's definitely at least one for each of those 2-color main supported pairs.
Yeah. And then
There might be more, and there's also a planeswalker. Yeah, there might also be, maybe they'll end up making like a fairy, a tree folk, and a giant. But yeah.
So 2 mana, 1/3, it comes in and rummages, and then you can pay a blue on your next turn at the beginning of your first main phase to flip it, and it turns into still a 1/3, but it says when this creature transforms into Ashling Rhymebound, and at the beginning of your first main phase, you add 2 mana of any one color, and you can only spend this mana to cast spells with mana value 4 or greater. And then it has the same ability. At the beginning of your first main phase, you can pay red to flip it back to the other side.
Yeah, which would mean you could get another rummage, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so what do you think about this card and then the mechanic in general?
Yeah, the mechanic's interesting. This card does something a little different than the rest. A lot of these kind of are designed to flip back and forth, it looks like. Not all of them, I guess. But a lot of them have a trigger when they transform into the other side, which this one does too, but they don't then also say, and at the beginning of your first main phase. So this is kind of like a weird recurring, is it mana dork?
Yeah, and so you don't get the recurring effect on the red side, but you do get the recurring mana on the blue one. Interestingly, it's gated. You can only cast spells of 4 or more, so it's really more of like a ramp card than it would be something for like a Prowess deck.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it can play a 4-drop on turn 3, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've had, a kind of maybe obvious thing that I'll be honest, I've looked at for the Pro Tour, so I don't think it'll be that weird that other people will know they could try to do this, is you could play this and discard a creature, and then next turn flip it and cast Superior Spider-Man.
Nice, okay.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, if you're in Grixis at that point.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because, the normal Superior Spider-Man deck is trying to reanimate a giant graveyard full of things, and there's not a lot of, like, really good solo things to just get with Superior Spider-Man, but still...
So you'd have to change the deck a little bit, but you could find something. I mean,
yeah, you'd also make a Grixis deck instead of a Sultai deck, so there's a lot of, things going on there, but...
Yeah.
I'll give also another... so I've been trying this a lot. This card is weirdly, if you want to play with it, like a blue-red gold card, except it works with just like one Steam Vents or Spire Bluff Canal. Because like you want to play it on turn 2 and have both red and blue mana. But unlike a true red-blue gold card, it can be in the same land. So like you can have Spire Bluff Canal and Swamp, and that's fine.
And then if you're a 3-color deck, the other side can help fix. Because it adds 2 mana of any one color. Yeah, it's pretty nice. It's interesting because it's like, it almost plays like a green-red card you would expect, but it's blue-red.
Yep.
It is cool that, if it's a little creature that sits into play, and if you're kind of flooded on mana, you could flip it back to the other side to get a little bit of rummaging.
Yeah.
So I think that's the idea with that. But overall, I mean, it's a pretty cheap card, so I'm pretty into it.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool card. It's weird to go too heavy building around it because then your deck ends up being kind of bad because it's a bunch of expensive cards. So it's a weird balance on how many cards you want to play to kind of let you pay off, The screen, by the way, has been frozen on Temple Garden for me. I don't know if that's true, but you were reading it so well, I didn't want to stop you.
Oh, gotcha. Well, here it is, everybody.
Okay.
For those of you who are watching. And here's the backside. So yeah, it's good pairing with Quantum Riddler, right? You can use the mana to cast it, and Rummage is
that's
good
a pretty
with Riddler.
Pretty like first guess as to what you might want to do with this. Yeah, and also like a Rummager is kind of cool with Quantum Riddler too. Like sometimes you warp Riddler. You can warp Riddler with 1 card in your hand, draw 2 cards, play this, discard a card, and draw 2 cards again.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll go on to the next card, another red card. And I saw that, according to some people on Reddit, this card's going to ruin Magic, so figured we had to talk about this one. This is Hexing Squelcher. 1 in a red, 2/2, Goblin Sorcerer. This spell can't be countered. Ward, pay 2 life. Spells you control can't be countered. And other creatures you control have Ward, pay 2 life. So what do you think? Is Magic over?
No, I mean, the people complaining, I think, are Commander players, and including CDH players, which is like, they're not that it's going to ruin Magic, but like, the whole point of that format is to try to combo kill, 3 other players without them being able to interact with you, and this does do a really good job of that, because it both
Okay.
can't be countered and says your spells can't be countered, so it forces a combination of removal and counter spells that turn.
Gotcha.
Or some weird, things that can maybe exile this from the stack or stuff like that. I mean, this card might see play in standard. It's got a lot of good things going on. I think it's not so much the spells can't be countered part. Though I actually like that it says this spell can't be countered. We'll get to it later, but Spell Snare is getting reprinted, and this is a 2-drop. So I feel like
It's not
the
bad.
line of text that says spells you control can't be countered is like the worst line of text on this card, in my opinion, as a standard player. But the fact that it can't be countered is not irrelevant.
Yeah, that matters.
Yeah.
It's funny with these cards. I'll be the first to complain about something like Cavern of Souls because I think that's fundamentally kind of a dumb card.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not anything that can just be, interacted with a removal spell really easily, right?
It's funny you mentioned that because like in CDH, it's like a totally normal thing to go like Cavern, Human, Grand Abolisher, win the game. So like this is just combining that into like one thing. Like it's not that weird.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, as for standard, it could be a decent sideboard card, kind of like a red Voice of Victory-ish, maybe.
Yeah, the pay 2 life, and there's a lightning rod too, so your opponent just really has to kill this first instead of your other creatures, and they're still going to take 2. That's not a bad deal.
Yeah. Okay. Well, simple card. We'll move on to the next one I have here. One I wanted to talk about. I've got this guy's so cool. Mutable Explorer.
This card's super cool. Like
you want to read it?
Yeah, so it's 2 and a green for a 1/1 creature shapeshifter changeling, which means this card is every creature type. That's in all zones, by the way. When this creature enters, create a tapped Mutavault token, which is the old card Mutavault, but it's a token, and it's a land that has tap add colorless, and you can pay 1 to turn it into a 2/2 changeling until end of turn. It's still a land. So a nice creature land. Weird little ramp card. Weird kind of thing where you want to be a ramp deck, but also care about creature types. Something that came to mind for this is, there's like the Ben Stark Golgari Dragons deck, and this is a couple dragons. It's also some demons for the Unholy Annex, so maybe that'll all work together.
Yeah. So Changeling is one of the mechanics for this set, huh? Brought it back.
Yeah, and so far, I haven't really seen any Changelings that are super wowing me. This one's super cool, but it's just this awkward thing where, like, this is also, like, not 2 creature ETBs, or stuff like that. So, like, it's not, like, that good at playing to the board, but it might show up in, like, small numbers. I'd be kind of surprised if this shows up as, like, some 4-of thing, I guess, because a 3-mana 1/1 is so awkward to develop.
Yeah, I'm tempted to compare it to the Green Overlord, which isn't really seeing play.
Yeah.
And Green Overlord has quite a few benefits over this in some ways,
Yeah, I agree. Suspend 6/5 is a lot stronger than a 1/1, and it has the buyout of being a 6/5 for 5.
A Rainbow Land is pretty nice for a lot of reasons, so
yeah.
We'll see. I think if it's going to see play, I mean, in the sort of green-black decks with, Dragon's Matter cards or Demon Matters cards, or maybe even both, this can kind of tie the room together.
Yeah, another weirdly awkward thing about this card is that making lands tokens is, like, not good with Earthbend. So, like, you'd probably play this in a deck that has Bossing Say a lot of the time, and, like, you don't actually want to Earthbend the Mutavault token, because if they kill it, it'll just go away forever.
Right. It's probably not the end of the world.
Yeah, but you'll probably never Earthbend the Mutavault.
You'll just never do the Mutavault.
It would be really good to Earthbend the Mutavault, a normal Mutavault.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. Mutavault was such a broken card when it was in Standard. Do you think that could ever come back? I guess it's not going to be in this set. I thought maybe it might be, honestly, but they haven't spoiled it yet, and they probably would have by now.
I could see it coming back one day, but probably not while Foundations is legal with Soulstone Sanctuary. Soulstone Sanctuary is not as good as Mutavault, but a really similar feeling that I think is still really cool to exist in Standard.
That makes sense, and sort of taking up that slot.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. Okay. We'll move on to another card that highlights another mechanic in this set, which is Evoke. So there's a cycle of mythic rares in the 5 color pairs with Evoke. This one is
the only card in the set with Evoke.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, Evoke, as we've seen from Modern, can be dangerous nowadays with all the blink effects running around, so I kind of get it. This cycle has a built-in way to get around that. So
Yep.
this one, Emptiness, is 4 and then 2 white black hybrids, so 6 mana. Elemental Incarnation. When this creature enters, if white white was spent to cast it, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. When this creature enters, if black black was spent to cast it, put 3 -1/-1 counters on up to 1 target creature, and then it has Evoke for 2 hybrid white black. So if you just do the Evoke ability, you do have to cast it to get the trigger. And if you spend white white as the cost, you get the first ability. You spend black black, you get the second. And then you don't want to spend white black on it because nothing would happen.
Yep. And also you can play it for 6 mana and spend white white black black and get both.
Yeah, and it's a 3/5. I don't know if I mentioned
Yeah,
that.
and what Alex meant by getting around the kind of flicker thing is if you flicker these, you're not going to get any ETBs. I mean, you could keep a 3/5. They're also not really good with like reanimating them. Superior Spider-Man does let you spend mana to cast these when you copy them.
Okay.
Superior Spider-Man costing 4 mana means that with the exception of the blue-black one, Deceit, you're only going to get 1 mode. But you can spend blue, blue, black, black, and exile Deceit from your graveyard to get both modes with Superior Spider-Man. That's not like extremely broken. But
no. Do you know what the Deceit one does? I can
yeah, it's also 6 mana. It's blue, black. So hybrid, blue, black, and 4. It's a 5/5. When it enters, if you spent blue, blue to cast it, return up to 1 other target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. If you spent black, black to cast it, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land permanent from it. That player discards that card and evoke for 2 mana. So you can, it's kind of funny this evoke cost because it could just have said evoke 2, right? And it kind of would play out exactly the same. That's funny to think about. But anyways, yeah, if you spend blue, blue, black, black on Superior Spider-Man with this in your graveyard, you could do the thing. And the thing, if you get both modes, is kind of cool because you can bounce something and then look at their hand and make them discard the thing that you bounced, or something better.
Right. Yeah, so at their core, there are these kind of versatility cards where they're this slightly hard to cast, which I think might be their big downfall, but there's this slightly hard to cast spell for 2 mana that does one of 2 different things, and then late in the game you can cast them and get some card advantage by getting a creature and 2 abilities.
Yeah, so far they mostly operate to me as like this weirdly kind of clunky card where like the 2 mana mode is pretty clunky, and especially just like they're cards that would be like pretty good instants, but they're all sorceries. So like they're kind of like they're like a 2 mana instant, but it's sorcery speed worth of value. And then weirdly enough, 3 of them cost 6 and 2 of them cost 5, but then you can have these big things, and their power and toughness are all over the place. Like, I don't know why this one's a 3/5. I guess they thought it was going to be really strong, because the other ones are much larger. But yeah, just weird kind of lot of options.
Yeah, I've also got this green-red one pulled to the front, which this is the one that maybe looked the best to me, just out of my quick glance at them. This one's a 5 mana 4/4, and then the red ability is deal 3 to any target, and the green ability is you search for any land card and you gain 2 life. Put it in your hand.
Yeah, any lands, which is kind of cool. Maybe some weird land toolboxes and standard, like Cavern of Souls or Bossing Say with this. But yeah, also Ashling is pretty cool with these because you can evoke them with the 2 mana from Ashling. They still have a mana value of 4 or more.
Oh yeah, that is cool. Yeah, so they were really cool cards. We're going to have to see. I mean, your mana has to be really good to cast 2 of 1 color on turn 2.
Yeah, the direction of the verges matter like a lot. Like this card is kind of hard to cast for green because Thornspire Verge starts red. But like I bet you can build a mana base where it's not that hard to play the red on turn 2, but then like that might be hard to play with Llanowar Elves, so it's a weird kind of mix.
Yeah, and the green, if you're going to need it, it's going to be early too, for an example for this one. As for Emptiness, which is the other card we read, yeah, it is funny how they're sorcery. They feel like clunkers.
Yeah. Oh, I heard one cool kind of thing with this.
Okay.
Which is that you could play it for white and return to Shauna's Tidebinder and counter the evoke trigger and keep this.
Nice.
requires some setup, and it's not that big of a payoff. Maybe it's why it's a 3/5.
Esper
But
deck, yeah.
yeah, or just a blue-white deck even. You could ignore.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd say if you're gonna deck build with these is like maybe don't get too attached to having the modality early game to the evoke. Think about it more like I'm gonna build my deck to evoke it only one way on turn 2. But then, once it's like turn 4 or I'm hard casting this and getting both, you want to have both modes when you hard cast them, of course, but like you might just treat this as like this is a black -3/-3 on turn 2, and it's a 6 mana do more.
Right. I think a good example of that is the green blue one. 5 mana.
Yeah.
This is a 5 mana 6/5, and the green is a disenchant basically, and the blue is draw 2 discard 1. So like you maybe don't really need green really early. Although funny enough, in a deck like if you were to play this in the green blue or boy deck, you'd have the green really easily.
This one seems like the best one to me, but it helps that there's a green blue deck.
It does, yeah.
There helps that there's a green blue deck that basically is all mana and payoffs. So this slots in really well.
Yeah.
It's also a 5 mana 6/5, which is much larger than the rest for some reason.
I guess because it's green. I don't know. But you could, so like you could get the card advantage out of it by just having a ton of mana around, and then also pretty relevant in this particular format to have a disenchant main deck.
Yeah.
So.
Also, I think there's only going to be 5 of these, and they happen to be the opposite of the Shocklands in this set, which I guess is like maybe flavorful because these creatures kind of feel like they exist in some weird void of the gaps of Lorwyn, so they're kind of filling the gaps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're pretty cool. I like them all. There was a cycle of these that was, they did they have Evoke?
No, they were
the old ones like Guile and whatnot.
Hostility. I know what you're talking about. They were all 6 drops. They were monocolor. They would be like triple green and 3. I think they're all 6/6s with like a keyword, weird static ability, and then they said if they died, something happens. Now I gotta look it up.
Yeah, I'm remembering. I remember the art on the cards better than the effects, funny enough, because I never really played with them, but I always thought they were really cool cards.
Oh, if they're put into a graveyard from anywhere, shuffle into its owner's library, so not really upside.
Right. Right. Just had that sort of ability. Okay.
They didn't want you reanimating these at the time.
Sure. And apparently they don't want you doing it now either. Although I think they're more worried about the blink, but yeah.
So I think I kind of remember that like in limited, if it's put into a graveyard from anywhere, shuffle into its owner's library is like occasionally upside. If you don't have any in your deck anyways, your giant bomb is back in your deck. Yeah,
totally. All right, this next one we've got a slam dunk, certainly. We figured we'll touch on it. It's a pretty simple card. Spell Snare has made its way back to standard after however many years. Yeah. This is going to be huge in Pioneer. I've been playing Pioneer, and it's like every good card is 2 mana that people's decks are built around.
Yeah, it used to feel that way in Standard before the bans, but...
right. Now it's just Pioneers that way.
Yeah, I mean, this might, there's Cub and Artist Talents.
Yeah, I think it'll be good in Standard, too. It's just a strong card.
The mana thing in Standard is going to be really revealing for this, is all I'll say. It's just like, you really, really need blue on turn 1 untapped to put this card in your deck. Because you have to play an island on the draw or whatever. So like, I'll take, for example, I don't know if Blue-White Control can like realistically play this because they don't have Seachrome Coast and the Flood Farm Verge goes the wrong way. Like, they just can't put like 10 islands and Hollowed Fountain in their deck, I don't think.
That's a good point. And even if you're shocking in Hollowed Fountain, your opponent might have an option of, well, maybe I'll just play 2 1-drops this turn, that sort of thing. Yeah,
and they might play a 1 or 2 just because it's a cheap counter, that can maybe trade up on mana at a different stage in the game, and it'll still work on turn 1 sometimes, but...
Yeah. But that's a factor that matters. Like, it would be better in a blue-black deck, for example, because that Verge runs blue.
Yeah, or, I mean, comically, blue-green mana is the one that would be best at casting this, but it's not really the type of deck that wants this at all.
No.
And then blue-red, and then on the other hand, even though River Power Verge goes the wrong way, Blue-Red has Spirebluff Canal, so it's much more realistic for them to actually pass with this on turn 1. They can actually play Steam Vents and Spirebluff Canal and 6 islands or whatever. That's totally normal.
Yeah. So I don't actually. I'm assuming when this was in standard in Dissension that it probably saw play in standard, right? Back then, do you have any idea?
I don't have an idea.
Because like Dark
Yeah.
Confidant was around and that sort of thing.
Let me see if I know one of the coolest decks I've ever seen from Remy Fortier. Curious, I could look up his deck list. It was extended though, so
Extended, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, this has just like always been kind of a powerhouse. It used to be. I mean, it still sees play in modern. It used to be see even more play maybe, but I will say modern has fetch lands, which make it a lot better because you can conceal it with a fetch land. You don't have
Yeah.
to shock or
Attacking
anything.
on turn one is pretty tough. Yeah.
And then you could either get an island or your dual end, depending on if your opponent plays a 2-drop or not. But just having a card that it's a hard counter and it always trades up on mana.
It might see play,
strong.
it might make people play some more ops or something, not even four, but just like I want to play a couple spell snare, a couple opt.
Yeah, I could see doing that, even in something like Blue White Control where you normally wouldn't play opt.
Yeah.
Just so
Or,
you're not
it's
burning
funny,
a mana.
it's not like the worst to play opt in lessons because like ultimately it's kind of thinning your deck and it's not worth a full lesson, but it helps.
Mm-hmm. Boy, this hits talent and accumulated wisdom.
Yeah, no, that could be a huge deal.
It's pretty nice. Hits Badgerable Cub.
Yeah, the Cub one is tougher because the Cub decks do play a lot of twos because they also really like playing Cub plus a two, but they also could just go like Land or Elves and you pass a spell snare and then they just say, okay, I'll play 2 Land or Elves and attack for 1. Or play 3 drop, like Warp a Riddler and play our Land or Elves, go.
Yeah, and maybe that's painful if you are like purposely playing like an untapped Hollow Fountain or something, but if you build your deck in a way where it's not harmful to just leave up 1 mana, it's still not that big of a deal.
Yeah, either way, it's definitely not that good to play into a turn 1 land or to pass with into a turn 1 land or elves, so that's definitely awkward.
Yeah, true. Yeah. So I think definitely Pioneer, this is going to be a huge hit, and I think in Standard it will be a role player for sure. I'm pretty excited for this one, honestly. For a long time, this was my favorite counterspell, and I can't even tell you why. I just like it.
I like this art.
Yeah, this is pretty good. I'd rock this. Yeah, that's another thing. Spell Snares needed an art upgrade. Not necessarily an upgrade, but we just haven't had a new one in a while. Well, we're on the topic.
I'll try to draft one at the Pro Tour really bad, probably.
Oh, yeah. Get a stamped one.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. Draft one of these two, maybe. Well, I have a question. Do you think this card's like going to be really good? I'm going to read it. 1 black, instant. Requiting Hex. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may blight 1. This is a mechanic in the set, blight, that all the black cards have. Well, a lot of the black cards have. And you may put a -1/-1 counter on a creature you control, which is blight 1, and then blight 2 would obviously be 2 counters. And it says, destroy target creature with mana value 2 or less. If this spell's additional cost was paid, you gain 2 life. So it is Fatal Pushback.
No, it's not that good. Not as good as Fatal Push. Cheap removal's good. I mean, I think this card's better than Stab, but it's probably too hard to play like 4 of these. But maybe if you're a dedicated control deck, you need to. The Blight thing is not bad to have as an option. It's a little weird. There are some cards in the set that like enter with -1/-1 counters, and you can remove them to do things. So this might see play with those. On top of that, I think gain 2 life is not meaningless upside, and you might just like have a creature that the sizing of the creature doesn't matter, or maybe your opponent kills your creature, and in response you just decide to cast this and blight that creature, and you gain 2 life.
Yeah, it's funny that it seems like such a minor add that I wonder if in Limited there's going to be a lot to do with the -1/-1 counters, either being a benefit or being able to remove them. Yeah.
But also, I don't know, Lightning Helix is a strong card, and like I imagine this card's existence is like a nightmare for mono red if you play against it. Like that option to gain 2 life is a big deal when it matters.
Totally, yeah. I mean, it can literally win the game.
Yeah.
Against
especially in
like
multiples.
That. Yeah. I agree this is just, not nearly as good as Fatal Push, right? But it's, for standard purposes, I think it's the 1 black removal spell people will play going forward for the most part.
Yeah, there's one specific case to stab, which is that your opponent plays Ouroboros and you stab it to prevent a turn of Ouroboros. But
Yeah, that's not bad.
yeah.
And of course, like 3/2s and that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's not a lot of 3-mana 3/2s, but occasionally.
Yeah.
Or it's a combat trick. But yeah, this also just like, you know, just I think, yeah, I guess right now there's not a lot of 2-mana 2/3s either that Blight is or that Stab is missing on, but sometimes it matters.
Yeah. Totally.
And yeah, there's some interesting cards that I think you can combo with the Blight, so that might be pretty cool.
Okay. We got another black card here. You want to read this one?
Yeah, Bitterbloom Bearer. This was what like the first card they showed from the set. It's black for a 1/1 fairy rogue, flash flying. Beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 blue and black fairy creature token with flying. So Bitter Blossom text, but on a 1/1 flash flying.
Yeah. I actually didn't realize that fairies weren't as supported as the other archetypes or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. But there's
Bums
also
me out
some
a bit.
random fairy support in Wilds of Eldraine, like Spell Stutter in this.
Right, so we still have some fairies, but I was thinking, I had thought that plus we were going to get a lot of fairies, so I was actually kind of excited for a fairy type deck, but what do you think? Does this...
So, like, first thing that comes to mind is playing this with Kaido and, Endearing Curiosity, but that mana cost is tough. The Verge is blue start, and there's no Darkslick Shores. So it's actually pretty hard to cast this on turn 2. I think if this card costs 1 in the black, I would say I would consider it stronger than Bitter Blossom as a card, weirdly enough.
That sounds right.
Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be good in Standard, because I don't think Bitter Blossom would be good in Standard, but...
Right. Well, I mean, Bitter Blossom, to be fair, even back then, it was good because of all the fairies around it as well. Obviously, it was like the best fairy card or whatever, but...
Yeah, and back then, it's just like board presence wasn't on board. This is a really good attacker and a pretty bad blocker / chump blocking maker.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, I think Bitter Blossom chump blocking was like actually kind of realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Not play it on turn 2 and chump block the whole game, but like I get my 2 or 3 fairies and then I clock you with these while I lose a life to chump.
The black-white Verge is black first, right?
Yes, and black-red.
And black-red. I mean...
This is cool. Sephiroth.
Yeah, it's good with Sephiroth. I was thinking it's good with the white Enduring.
Oh.
That mana's a little tough, but you've got Goblet Shrine and all that now.
Yeah, white-black has like pure awesome mana, so I could believe that.
Concealed Courtyard is in Standard, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Black-white deck. I know most of the white-black token decks that when they do see play, they're usually more white-based, but if we get some good black cards in the set besides this, you could lean that way.
Voice of Victory in the same deck or whatever. I don't think like your mana would be bad. The black-white.
No.
Good.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that's a potential.
A cool idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a pretty strong card. I mean, only 2 mana and you get so much out of it.
It's kind of cool that like just thinking about this hypothetical deck that like if your 2 drops were this and Voice of Victory, that like if your opponent passed with removal, they don't get to cast it against either of your 2 drops.
Yeah, that's true. It's pretty nice. I guess I don't love that Iro's Demonstration is in a bunch of main decks right now.
Yep.
But when you're evaluating cards, you gotta think about the card just itself, and then you'll see as the format changes if it'll have spots or not. So we will see. I certainly don't really expect this to be in like a fairy shell now, because as I was glancing at the cards, there's just really not anything fairy.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's not too late.
Thing is super cool to me. That's like,
dude, I want a Sephiroth deck to even just like tier 2 in Standard. I would play it. I really would. But yeah. Okay, one last card, all right? One last card. I've got Oko Lorwyn Liege. 2 and a blue Planeswalker. Apparently, Oko lives in Lorwyn. It's got 3 loyalty. At the beginning of your first main phase, you may pay green. If you do, you transform Oko. So the joke here is that the plus abilities are on one side of this Planeswalker and the minus abilities are on the other. So we've got +2, up to 1 target creature gains all creature types. Notably, it doesn't say until end of turn. And +1, target creature gets -2, -0 until your next turn. The backside is a green planeswalker that at the beginning of your main phase, you can pay blue to switch him back. And this is all the minus abilities. -1, mill 3 cards. You may put a permanent card from among them into your hand. -3 is create 2 3/3 green elk creature tokens. And -6 is choose a creature type. You get an emblem with creatures you control the chosen type, get +3/+3, and have vigilance and hexproof. So, what do you think? It's really cheap, you know? So cheap planeswalkers have the potential to be broken, even if they look like they don't do much.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the play patterns. That +2 is awful.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. I mean,
it's mostly just like +2, add 2 loyalty, you know?
It's like if your opponent doesn't have a creature, you get away with +2ing this. That's mostly what that's there for. Yeah. If your opponent has a single creature, maybe it's small enough that you can +1 it. Then this gets to your next turn with 4 loyalty, and you flip it, and you -3 it for 2 elks. That's pretty cool, because then the 2 elks are going to help protect it. But then, next turn, you have an option. You could either flip it back to try to plus it some more, or maybe you just try to cash it in for mill 3, put a permanent from among them into your hand.
Yeah.
But that's, 2 elks and a thing in your hand for, I guess, 4 mana, 3 and 1. The emblem seems like it's never going to come up.
Sure. The 2 elks does seem generous. I mean, I would expect it to say 1, you know? Maybe -2.
Yeah, and then I guess on the other hand, if you play this against a control deck, you play it pluses up to 5, and then maybe you flip it and you like minus it twice and it's still in play. Like you -3, -1, and you still have a planeswalker to flip back, or -1 it again. That might fill some cool things. And yeah, there's a Land or Elf deck, and I could see this being like a sideboard card in the Simic deck against slower decks.
Yeah, I mean, it's good with Land or Elves, right? I mean, having a planeswalker on turn 2. I will say, once you get those elks, it kind of stops doing anything for a while. So
yeah, unless you just want
almost like a one-trick pony here.
Yeah, because I mean the front side basically does nothing in like the context of wanting a planeswalker. I mean, it can maybe protect itself, but I really think the play it and +1 is purely like a tool to defend itself the turn you play it or whatever. And then I just don't think like long term that's going to help defend itself at all.
Do you think the +2, could they realistically make a card in this set where that would matter?
It means you could target your guy and it never dies to shoot the sheriff.
Got him.
I don't know what else it could matter with.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, like some Lord thing, like if for some reason you're playing a deck that has a Lord and you have some creatures that aren't of that type, but that's just so it's so minor.
Yes, you could target your elks over multiple turns and then flip it and ult it, and then name a creature type that wasn't elk. Sure. But your elks are still there, but I don't know. I feel like you'd just rather get more elks.
Right.
I mean, they don't even get.
Well, yeah, why would you ever tick it up that much, right?
Yeah, they don't get indestructible, and the context of that matchup, I imagine, is Wrath my 2 elks, or and that's.
Yeah, and then the protect itself only -2 is. It's not that much. I mean, it's okay.
I mean, I like the -1 and the -3. Those are pretty strong.
They are.
But also, it's unfortunate that, if you play this, it could just get losted. It pluses to 5 on an empty board. That matters, I guess, a little bit for some things, but
yeah, I guess against a get lost deck, it can't get value right away, pretty much no matter what. So that's rough. It's probably a miss overall.
Maybe sideboard Simic card just because there's a Simic deck.
Yeah,
and that Simic deck is really bad against Day of Judgment type cards to add.
That's true. So. Yeah, so maybe. It's not going to be on my top 10, I'll tell you that much. And is it any surprise that they went tame with the Oko after what happened last time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oko is, I know some lore about Oko, and I believe Oko's a fairy, but not a Lorwyn fairy. Something going on in Lorwyn.
Is there a difference? Yeah. He looks like an elf. Look at those ears.
Yeah, I know. Fairy, some weird, it's a fairy from, I think he's from Eldraine, not
I see.
Plane. So
he's hanging out here. That makes sense.
Yeah. Hanging out with the changelings, it looks like.
Oh boy. All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode, folks. Thanks for watching or listening. I will remind you could find us over on Patreon. patreon.com/stockuppodcast. It's $1 a month, and you get access to all of our exclusive content. If you don't want to follow us over there, you could also follow us on YouTube. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. So thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week for a Lorwyn Top 10. So at this RCQ, I was going to tell you the story about the multiversal passages, but I had another thing that came to mind. In the first round against my opponent, I lost in game 1. I'll tell you my punt really quick. I'm going to deck. His win condition is decking me. He's got a rest in peace in play. He's playing Jeskai Control. And he's got 1 card in hand, and I'm trying to finish him off between attacking with this 3-power Grand I have because of map tokens and my 1 last monument. And I get him down to... I have 1 monument in play, and I get him down to 3. And I think I've got like 2 cards in the library, and in his upkeep, he has 1 card in hand, he goes upkeep, and if I just don't do anything, if I don't play an instant to put a trigger on this stack, I can just go to my next turn and attack him with Grand, and I pretty much win. But I'm like, oh yeah, upkeep. So I cast something, and then his last card is Jeskai Revelation. So he gains 4 life and like bounces Grand, and I lose. And I'm like, oh wow, I totally just fell for that, didn't I? I guess that was when I realized, like, oh yeah, the trigger can go on the stack, and then he can... Or I have to choose it, basically, I have to choose lose 3 life, and it'll be on the stack, and he can respond to it.
Still lose to it, right?
Pass the turn.
Draw to 1 card, attack with Grand. Draw to 0.
Discard.
Discard, put a trigger on the stack.
Oh, because of the Grand.
Yeah.
You're right.
You actually don't want the Grand to have you loot in that spot.
Yeah, but it does. Yeah. So maybe that is the best time to cast it then.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Okay, interesting. Well, anyways, in the game 3, what's going on in this game? Oh, we're in time, but time doesn't matter. It's on his turn 4. On my turn 5, I'm going to kill him with my monument triggers, and he has prowess, prowess monks, and I'm at like 2 or something, and he attacks me. Or no, I'm at 10. That's what it is. I'm at 10, and he has a Meringue River Regent and Prowess Monks. And he like attacks, and I have Grand, and he pauses, and he like very clearly pauses, and I'm like, why is he letting me block with Grand on the Prowess thing? Maybe I can actually live. So I say block with Grand, and then he goes, oh, I didn't see the Grand. Actually, I don't want to. I have a response before blocks. And I think, like, okay, you like very clearly passed priority. And I don't know, my Grand is not hiding. So like we call the judge over, and the judge asks the people around us, and the people were like, yeah, he like very clearly passed priority, I would say. And I was like, okay. But I was thinking about the World Championship. I was like, oh, does this mean they're gonna like let him take it back? Is that sort of thing? It's not like any information was gained or anything. Anyways, judge did not let him take it back, and he lost.
Did you have mana up?
I did have mana up.
Yeah, some information was gained, right? That was your priority to cast a spell before blocks.
That's true.
So
what he ended up doing was he had to like he cast Jeskai Revelation to try to kill me, but I had a Spell Pierce. But he also had a Get Lost. He could have just Get Lost my guy before blocks.
I see.
And that would have beaten me. So that was interesting, I thought, only because of like the World Championship thing.
Yeah, those things are always interesting. This is kind of rude, I guess, but a lot of games of Magic, especially at the RCQ level, are just not played like close to the correct, like how they should be by the rules.
Mm-hmm.
I've had this thought a lot that like I could be at an RCQ either as a player or a spectator and just like probably get people to lose by watching their game and calling a judge and being selective about it. And I guess not that I want to do that, but what it makes me think about is that there's a cost to like watching matches if you're an honest player that wants to, like, I mean, I think you should either have two stances about it. You should either just never call a judge if you see something wrong, which I don't think is against the rules, to be clear. Or you should always call a judge if you see something.
Right, because as soon as you're selective about it, you're biased.
Yeah, and I think it's really effectively cheating, just like help your friends and never call a judge on them, but call a judge on all their opponents or things like that.
Right.
I mean, I've called judges on my friends more than, most people at local events or stuff like that. Or, I was a level 1 judge a very long time ago or whatever, never at, like a big tournament, just for local events or stuff like that. And my friends, Wiley, helped me with that. And I noticed eventually that he, at like these RCQ, or I guess back then, they were PPTQs or actual PTQs, he mostly only ever watched the finals.
Okay.
Which is kind of like a nice, like, unselective bias where it's just like,
it is.
Yeah, I'll watch the finals and, say you can't do that or give warnings or things like that. But I'm not just going to like stare and watch random matches throughout the rest of the tournament.
Right. Especially when you're the only judge or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I didn't want to, after I did it, I felt like, I don't like feeling like a shark, especially at a local level, even though it's an RCQ, but like, I don't care that much about the RCQ, to be honest.
Yeah.
That was just an incident where it was like, very clear. It wasn't like you missed a trigger or something. It was like a strategic error.
Yeah, there's some weird ones where like, yeah, that sounded like a strategic error. I'm sure there's times where like someone does have a spot where like it could make sense to be a take back, but the context of it means that like it just can't be because too much information was gained. A lot of weird.
Yeah, so I played against the other person that qualified at this tournament. I played against him in the Swiss and beat him. And he was also playing in a Prowess. Well, he was playing the like Riddler-based Frostcliff Siege blue-red deck. And I was really impressed with how thorough he like announced all his triggers and did everything very properly. Because I had not played that deck in real life, and I was actually, not struggling, but I was really focused on trying to get everything right and finding it decently difficult playing the Lessons deck because there's just so many triggers. And I don't think I made a mistake during the tournament, so that's nice. But I was really impressed with that guy. I'm not surprised that he's also qualified.
A couple times now in Pro Tour playtesting, which I mentioned specifically that, and like never Arena Ladder, probably just because the Pro Tour testing, my games are harder. I have decked as Lessons without, like, in spots where I think if I was playing paper, I never would have decked. It's not like I suddenly get decked, but it's like I suddenly realize I have like 5 cards in my library. And I'm
right.
Like,
Right.
I've just been playing like really loose with my like artist talent.
I did that once online where I just totally decked myself and I was like completely winning and I was just like, oh, whoops. Yeah, I did get a warning in this tournament, and it's because I drew in a null in a game 1, and I was like, judge, call the judge. And nowadays, all they have you do is he revealed the null and the card from my sideboard that should have been my main deck and just let me swap them. And I got a warning, so that was nice. That did happen to me once in a tournament a long time ago where I did that, and I got a game loss, and I did not like that very much.
Yeah, that one has become more lax. Usually you have to immediately call a judge on yourself as soon as you notice and that you won't get a game loss. Even like, like really weird spots in the middle of the game I've heard. Like I guess specifically I know somebody were mentioned for something that was in their sideboard and realized it was in their sideboard and got to put it in.
Oh, wow. That's wild. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in general, I'm a fan of making the rules a little bit more lax, but you still have to have boundaries around like strategic decisions and whatnot, which is why the world thing was a little strange, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the most lax rules thing I think is people playing too slow, mostly.
Okay, yeah, I could see that. I mean, that's one of the harder ones to enforce at all, to be fair, so that's tough.
Yeah. But it's this weird thing where, like...
It's definitely something you need to be able to track over tournaments, right? And right now you can't do it.
Yeah, like, basically, I think there's probably a decent number of people on the Pro Tour that I would consider this cheating. They might not consider it cheating, and they might not tell anybody this out loud, but basically they might operate under like the thought of, I'm going to play as slow as I want until a judge tells me otherwise, and I'm not going to have any concern. And I believe that's actually cheating if that's your mindset.
Okay. Like
in a sense, it's actually
you have
like,
no regard for the time of the match or whatever.
Yeah, you're supposed to play at a pace that you could finish in time. So it is like, it's a weird thing because it's like not their intent, and also cheating needs to like know the rules, and that's not like a rule that's, I guess, necessarily well known.
Mm-hmm. But so if you're up a game and you're in game 2 and you're
not like that. Sorry.
Okay.
I know what you're saying, which is like you win game 1 and then you play incredibly slow because a draw would still be winning the match. I don't mean in that sense. I mean in like the sense of monopolizing the shared clock.
Gotcha.
Just like, I'm going to take all the time I need, and it, that means that, my opponent has to play faster if we want to finish this. I don't care.
Gotcha. Because most reasonable people, when you're taking time to think through a decision, there's a little clock in the back of your head that's like, okay, I have to do something.
Yeah, that's funny you say that. Yeah, I have that, and I think mine is like way too short.
Yeah, mine might be too. Sometimes I think like, okay, I haven't this is an important turn. I haven't taken too much time. I should actually think about this a little bit more.
Yeah, I've had
Sometimes I have to do that.
Yeah, I've also, like, being a combo deck player of stuff like KCI or Amulet, I've had that clock hit me sometimes when I'm already up a game or in game 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I managed to stop myself and be like, I can't run out of time. Like, all I have to do is win the game this turn. It's gonna happen as long as I do everything right. Like, I just execute everything, take my time, and I'll win the game this turn. Or maybe I'm a weird combo deck where I win the game next turn. But even if we get, like, Nadu, like, even if we run out of time in the middle of me going through this turn, then I'll just win on turn 2 of turns. It's fine. Like,
right, yeah. But I guess, yeah, maybe I could see if maybe you were that just never occurred to you that you needed to speed up at all. You're just like, I'll make a judge tell me to play faster or I won't.
Yeah.
That's fair.